Welcome everybody to another episode of the Nerd Continuity, where we talk about design, development, and all the other stuff that we find online. I'm your host, Alex, and with me, as usual, my co-host, Chris Perkle. Hello, Chris.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good, and enjoying this lovely, rainy, wintry, nasty weather we're having.
Oh, it doesn't it doesn't sound like something you would enjoy, but it's
No, not
well,
at all.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, also here in Vancouver, the weather has been so crazy. Like we had snow for 2 weeks straight, which it never happens.
Wow. Yeah.
And then it started raining and snowing at the same time, so everything turned into a dump, and it was just like bad and soggy and wet. And the snow, it wasn't really melting, so we had just like ice and puddles of half snow and half water. It's just gross. It's just terrible walking, and a lot of people were like falling down because of the black ice.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, crazy
Oh, that
weather.
sucks.
Yeah. We finally did another episode just after 2 weeks, which almost never happens, which
Yeah.
is crazy.
I know we're terrible at keeping to a schedule.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's fine. Like we have a pretty freaky and hectic schedule ourselves, so it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to try to have consistency in meeting. But we did it, so
Yeah.
yay, good for us. Yay.
And last episode, you were talking about something that you weren't ready to announce yet.
Yes.
So tell us what your secret is.
Yeah, I spilled the beans on a podcast last
Yeah.
week where I was interviewed. So I'm starting next month as a lead UX architect for Mozilla, the Thunderbird project, the email client for Mozilla. That was the super secret thing. Basically, I'm changing job, and
Hmm.
I'm doing this. I'm starting to
Well,
work for Mozilla.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's really interesting how it happened, and
Mhm.
just to quickly touch base upon it is that a lot of people they constantly like tell me, and they always told me, like, why do you release free stuff online? Why do you put all your source
Mhm.
code on GitHub? Why you do tutorials for free? You're not gonna get any money. You should sell your things. And I was always, no, it's fine. Like I don't need these, and I like to share it, and I like to just help other users. But because of my approach of sharing everything and having all my source code, that what kind of like put me in the spotlight for
Mhm.
these role at Thunderbird. They literally contacted me and they told me, we know you, we know what you do, we just want to talk to you and offer you the job, basically.
Oh,
So
wow.
almost no interview whatsoever.
It's the best way to do it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I think it's the best resume that you could get, like that
Hmm.
you could have for yourself, like having all your work outside and showing how you work and showing your source code, and especially ending up working for an open source foundation like
Hmm.
Mozilla, it like showing that you really care about open source by doing all these open things.
Right.
It's amazing. So yeah, that happened, and I'm still freaking out. I don't know what's gonna happen, and yeah. So if the next version, I keep repeating this, but if the next version of Thunderbird is terrible, you know who to blame.
Yeah, we'll come after you with pitchforks and torches.
Yes, absolutely.
So for the young people listening to this, Thunderbird's been around for forever
Hmm.
as like an email client.
Hmm.
What is it written in?
It's a bit of a mess.
Okay.
And I could be wrong because I didn't thoroughly investigate the source code, but it's mostly
Mhm.
written in C. It's a code base that started in 1999.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
something that a lot of people don't know about Thunderbird is basically it's Firefox with on top all the email functionalities. So every time there's a new release of Firefox, the entire Thunderbird team has to be sure that nothing is broken and
Mhm.
everything works. And But yeah, so the majority is written in C, but there's a huge refactor going on for all these front-end functionalities like the calendar integration, the fact that you can sign up and automatically set up your email with your Google account, all these things, they need to be refactored in JavaScript because it's faster and are just small snippets and small implementations of the application. And that's mostly why they hire me. And also Thunderbird has been around, as you said, for many years, like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Has a user base of 25 million users or something like that, which is insane because like who uses Thunderbird? Like that was my first, like honestly, my honest question, like who still uses this?
Yeah, I think I stopped using it when like Gmail became popular and it was like, oh, you can do all this stuff in the browser now.
Yeah, true.
But I do know some people that still use Thunderbird, and I was kind of surprised when I did hear that they were using it. But it's cool to know that they're, wanting to revamp it and really, make it more modern.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the main goal, and that's basically what's going to be my main purpose at the company. It's creating a proper user interface and refactoring the usability and the user experience of the entire application, because it's been developed for all these years, and so far the process is always the same. Like a user creates a bug report or something. Hey, there's a feature that it's missing. I wish to have this feature in Thunderbird, and a developer takes that, implements it, it goes through all the testing and approval, and then it gets shipped. So there's not really a design step in that. It's all developers or users request based implementation. So there's no proper like prototyping or user testing, or not user testing, like front-end testing with JavaScript technology, something that's missing, something that I will push a lot, and everybody in there is going to hate me because no, we need to do prototypes. No, we'll see how it goes. I'm still like super confused about what's going to be the day-to-day work, but I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing a new version of Thunderbird. I'll install it once you have your first release.
Yes, I will start using it for work every day, so I can just see where to improve it. Moving on, there's a interesting note that you wrote here, and I'm gonna read it like verbatim. You wrote, "Spooky story of how Google Home pranked Chris."
Yes.
Tell us everything about it.
Sure. So get your snacks, turn out the lights.
Yeah.
So this fall, Black Friday, Google is doing really good deal on a lot of their devices. So I know it's terrible for privacy, but I was like, let's get a Google Home, So we have a Chromecast on our TV that we use to cast Netflix and YouTube TV. We have a Google Home hub in our kitchen, which is like kind of like a little mini tablet. And then we have one of the little speakers in our bedroom, and we use it to turn on and off the lights and play music or whatever we want to do. And it's been great. So a few weeks ago, it was late at night. We were watching TV. We had the volume turned down low. We were just kind of sitting there talking. It was around 11:30, midnight, and all of a sudden, just from our kitchen, is just screaming and growling, like super loud. And me and my wife were just like freaked out, like, what is going on? Like the first thought that went through my head was somebody hacked my Google Home. Like,
oh my God.
Somebody in the building is like hacking us or something. And it was super loud. It was freaking us out. So I ran over to the kitchen, and on our little display in the kitchen, it was playing the movie It. And it was a scene where like the clown is like killing the kids or whatever.
What?
And so I immediately like stop it. And I'm really freaked out at this point, like what is going on? So then me and my wife were trying to like recount what we were talking about. And so what happened was she was talking to some coworkers at work, and they were talking about some music, and one guy didn't know what the song was. And she said it wasn't until I played it that he realized what song I was talking about. I don't know why Google thought that she wanted to play the movie It that happens to be on TV. And on top of all that, why it didn't use the Chromecast that we were already casting to. It decided to use his other device and turn the volume way up.
Oh my God.
But it was really freaky, and yeah, it's interesting.
Oh God. Yeah, I would have simply run out of my apartment and not go back. Just change it. Find another apartment. Just
Yeah.
that's it. Do you want your stuff? No, I don't. So like, oh my, do you unplug it at night or you leave it on all the time?
No, I leave it on all the time.
Oh,
There is a physical switch that you can turn off the
okay.
microphone. I don't know if it actually works.
It's fake switch.
Yeah. But no, I don't really care. I don't think we ever talk about anything that
Uh-huh.
I worry about the government listening to. But yeah, it was a little freaky.
Oh my God. How long did it take you to figure out what was happening?
A couple minutes of me like looking at the screen, like, why is this playing here? Why is it so loud? You know.
Jeez. Terrible. Oh,
So be
wow.
careful what you say around Google devices.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's I have a couple of friends that they have the Alexa hub, the Alexa little tower, and they all ended up putting it in a closet after a while, after a couple of weeks, because it was catching like random bits and pieces of conversation.
Hmm.
And it was like playing music randomly or triggering orders to Amazon or sending emails notification. Yeah, it's kind of like it's the downfall of the always listening
Yeah,
functionality, right?
yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad you're fine and you don't actually have a crazy clown in your kitchen. So
Yes, yeah.
that's a good
I
thing.
survived.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Based on our last episode where we talk about a couple of interesting projects that we're working both on, we have a couple of questions coming there. And one question is for you, and also want to know how's your projects going. So the Commentatory Boy, interesting nickname, wrote, so Chris is creating a sort of like Heroku-like app, but for WordPress and Laravel apps.
I guess not exactly. Heroku, I believe you can use it as like a production environment, and you can, they've got a CLI and everything you can post things to, which, I mean, maybe something down the road I'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is really more for just, I want to share progress, a project in progress, or, here's my final project, but I want you to see it before we actually put it on our production server.
Mm.
And this kind of takes away the need for you to stand up your own VPS or
Mm-hmm.
get a hosting provider to give you an extra space and set up your subdomain and whatever you need to do to get that WordPress site or Laravel application up for a client to see.
Mm-hmm.
In the day we're in, you don't always work with people down the street. My last client I was working with is in Puerto Rico, so
Oh,
I can't just go down there and be like, "Here's a site. What do you think?"
yeah.
So it's just kind of a quick way to say like, "All right, here's a repository for my WordPress theme. Stand me up a WordPress site, give me a URL, and I'm done."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So it's like a live environment, like live demo environment for you to test before actually pushing to production.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how's it coming?
It's going all right. I haven't worked on it a whole lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
I've been meaning to, but I've gotten a little bit of the initial UI in place. My name right now is Code Stage. I don't know if I'll keep it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been fun. I've been playing with Vue a lot and kind of really just taking my time and refactoring components and trying to get it the way that I kind of want it to work, as opposed to just pushing through and getting a project complete.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, looking forward to seeing and actually using it. And we'll see. Another question that we have, which is not really a question, but it's a suggestion. We were talking about Akira, which is the Linux design application that I'm trying to kickstart and I'm trying to make it happen. A user, the N2Fole00, I guess it's his nickname, suggested to try Pencil, and he's using this software called Pencil by Evolus, whatever. He says he's not really at the same level of Sketch, and he hopes Akira will be. There are a lot of users that suggested to take a look at Pencil, and also on Reddit, a lot of users said like Akira is not necessary because we have Pencil already. Just keep working and keep extending that. So I know Pencil, I use Pencil, but first of all, it's a project that hasn't been updated in 2 years. Like there's no commit, nothing. It's sort of like, I don't think it's a dead project, but it's not really, extended and just improved anymore. And also, once again, is a JavaScript application. It's an Electron app as well. Has a lot of interesting things. You have a library of pre-built toolkit UI that you can simply drag and drop, and you can create, like, quickly create a prototype without actually designing anything, because you have a lot of pre-built library elements. But it's an Electron app once again. And as soon as you start having more than one design or 2 or 3 different things in the same page, it gets so heavy and so hard to manage that it's definitely not worth investing time in this. And so please stop sending me Pencil links. Hey, did you try Pencil? Did 15 emails in 20 minutes. Yes, I tried it. Stop it.
Yeah, that's the thing with Electron, is just it's a cool idea, and Visual Studio Code seems to do a great job with it. I don't know how, but they use a lot of RAM.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you've got 64 gigs of RAM or something that you're
you can run Slack and Visual Studio Code at the same time.
Yeah.
That's it. I know that Visual Studio Code has some bits and pieces written in C, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, okay.
And the majority of the front end is written in JavaScript. So it's a kind of like a hybrid Electron app. But Visual Studio Code, it's an amazing achievement that it's super light and fast and it's not heavy at all. But it's still slower compared to Sublime Text. Sublime Text is completely written in C++. Mm-hmm. And if you try, I do a lot of like find and replace on massive amount of data, so especially when I have to transfer a database from a site to another, like a WordPress database. I have to replace the URL because WordPress still stores the URL inside the database, which I don't know why. Yeah. So I have to do a find and replace sometimes on a database file, an SQL file that weighs 2 to 3 gigabytes. And in Sublime Text, it takes 10 seconds, 20 seconds. It's really fast. It doesn't freeze. On any other Electron-based IDE or code editor, it takes, I don't know, half an hour. Sometimes it crashes. Wow. No, it's not. It's like on extensive, really heavy computing things, Electron falls behind.
Yeah.
And I had also in the past some issues with extensions from Visual Studio Code, like the Vue.js front-end extension. They were like, if they're not coded properly, your CPU start going at 100% and it stays there until your computer crashes. So it's pretty terrible sometimes. But yeah, nonetheless, Visual Studio Code, it's a pretty great example of how Electron apps should be or should behave, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always felt pretty lightweight. I've never used Sublime, but yeah, I mean, it's always felt very light until you add like 50 plugins. And
that's the terrible downfall. Okay, moving on, we have some juicy news. That's something that I don't know how to handle this. Do you want to start with the first news?
Sure, yeah. So Gutenberg Phase 2, and last week you were talking about how you were embracing Gutenberg. So I want to see how you have reacted to this news of them rolling out Phase 2. And I know a long time ago, back before Phase 1 was even complete, we had a podcast and we talked about how Gutenberg was not a page builder. It was just for the content. And now it's looking like it is going to be a page builder. They're wanting you to be able to do the widgets with blocks and the menus with blocks, and it's the customizers blocks. Everything's blocks. So it's some really weird news. It's kind of hard to comprehend how this is really going to work. Most of my posts are very short, so I don't have more than 10 or 15 blocks on like the content. But if every menu item is a block within a block, and like a mega menu, how are all these blocks going to work together with the sidebar? And depending on your site, you could just have dozens of blocks. So how is that really going to affect performance? How many JavaScript and CSS are all going to be loaded over the wire? And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're thinking of, this is not a a theme builder. This is not a page builder, and that's exactly what they want to do. So my main question is, I'm not really concerned because I think WordPress learned a lot in the past 2 years of what they did about Gutenberg, and they changed a lot of the wrong things that we were doing about Gutenberg. And the block editor improved a lot in the past, even like 3 months or since WordPress 5 was released. The problem is that and I don't know if it's actually a real problem, but the fact is that Gutenberg right now in the block editor just only like behaves that way in the admin area. So you have your admin area, the content, the post, the pages, and everything is dynamic with React and JavaScript. But then the actual content in the front end is just text, is just HTML spit out with PHP. But now that also the widgets and the menus will be handled with a Gutenberg type of approach, with a block type of approach. So we're going to have a lot of JavaScript in the admin, but also how are we going to deal with that in the front end? If we have some custom style with CSS, some custom animation, or some custom behavior with JavaScript on the menu or a specific widget, well, like, do we have to enqueue all the things, or Gutenberg or the block will enqueue in a self-contained thing by itself, or everything is going to be in the header, everything is going to be in the footer? So what's going to happen? Are we going towards a fully React WordPress front end, or a fully React WordPress admin area?
Yeah, and it's still early, so I guess we'll see what happens. But it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see what it's going to be like for theme developers. Because right now, you're in charge of theming the whole site, and you can do some things to override the content from Gutenberg. But if all of a sudden you're needing to make sure that if people grab your theme, which I don't even know what a theme is at this point, just a general layout, I guess. How are the menu widgets going to look? How are all these things going to work? Or is it going to be more like, hey, I want to build my own theme. I'm just going to grab the 2020 skeleton theme, and here's like all these different menu blocks I can install as plugins. Like you pick the one that you want styled a certain way. And if that's the case, I think a lot of WordPress sites are going to look like Wix sites, where people are just kind of grabbing different styles and themes and mashing them together, and
Yeah, indeed. And also these will definitely break backward compatibility forever. Already Gutenberg did it, a massive break in backward compatibility pretty much for everything content related, for all the page builder and the theme builders that were heavily relying on the content editor, the tiny MCE. Now with these widgets and menus, pretty much, all the page builders, they have the ability to customize those. So is WordPress putting the foot on the ground, or the developers are saying that's it, like it's time to go towards the future, stop with backward compatibility? So from 5 going on, it's gonna be keep breaking things for past versions?
Yeah, and I would think that, in my opinion, if they wanted to go forward and break the backwards compatibility, I'd rather see them like refactor a lot of the PHP.
Yes.
A lot of that core code is terrible. It's a mess. Like some of these functions that take like 20 parameters or whatever. It's like, come on,
they
man.
don't respect any PSR convention at all. That's an interesting point of view. And also, I'm actually starting a Gutenberg series this week. I recorded the first 2 videos, and
nice.
already the approach of implementing a custom block, it's super weird because it's partially JavaScript and partially PHP. And you have some unique enqueue block PHP actions that are identical to the enqueue style or the enqueue script of WordPress. So you have literally a function with 10 parameters, and you have to pass those specific parameters, and you have to enqueue it in the admin and in the front end. Plus, you need to create the React file and compile the React file and enqueue that JavaScript compiles in order to use it. So it feels like they're going forwards and they're trying to improve the front end, the React part, and new technologies. Yeah, but the PHP approach is still old as hell, and
Yeah.
it's not optimized. It's not. It doesn't really. It's kind of weird. Doesn't make sense. But well, we know, like all our predictions are always wrong mostly.
Yeah.
So
We don't know what we're talking about.
yeah, we have no idea what we're talking about, and we're just complaining because things are different. We don't like things different. So, but yeah, no, it's really interesting, and we'll see. Do you think WordPress will ever go fully object-oriented programming, or will still remain procedural mostly?
I don't know. I feel like if it was gonna go object oriented, it would have done it by now. It's so old already, and I would love to see it object oriented. I think AWPS is a great example of how that can happen.
Yeah.
But AWPS is kind of just like you're taking the bad stuff out of WordPress and wrapping it nicely into objects that are
Yeah, and
easier to use, right? So I mean, I think they could do the same thing where they leave all that the same and then kind of extract it to another level where it's object oriented. But I don't know. They seem just so focused on just Gutenberg that.
Yeah, the front end mostly, right? It seems like they're more concerned about allowing regular users and like not developers to visually build new themes and new websites or manage the website visually than actually giving developers new tools and modern approaches to build custom themes. So it feels like there's a little bit of ownership, and also the fact that WordPress, fundamentally it's a PHP application, it's a PHP CMS, and it doesn't work out of the box with Composer, and it's also not recommended to use Composer on plugins, which is something that bugs me so much. If you use Composer Autoload or Composer, the env.env package on a plugin, it will conflict with another plugin if it uses the same. It's terrible. Like, why? How is that?
That's very frustrating because there's a lot of Composer packages out there that can, do what you're already looking to do, and you don't have to redevelop it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
So, why not allow you to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I guess let's move on from Gutenberg and let's see what's going to happen in phase 2, 3, 4, 5, and where Gutenberg is going in the future. In the next bit of news, we had Figma, which is kind of like the industry standard leading industry application for user interface and UX design, just announced with pride, which I don't understand where the pride is coming from, new 40 million round C funding for the design application Figma. It's like, okay, a lot of questions. First, amazing. Okay, you got 40 million in Series C, so the tool will evolve and so many cool things will come from it, and developers and designers will benefit from it, absolutely. But my main question is, how is it possible that you still need to go through raising funds to have your kind of like top of the industry application still up and running?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I don't understand it either because, they're already at a point where they're selling subscriptions, they're making money.
If that we think they're making money.
We think. Maybe they don't have any users. And
everyone is just on a free starter. They have like millions of accounts.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're going to take this money and use it for advertisement or for, going to a whole bunch of conferences all over the world and putting up booths and that kind of stuff, just to get more users. I'm not exactly sure what they'll use it for. Because I mean, it seems like the development is at a place where it's, sellable.
Absolutely. And a lot of users, a lot of designers are switching from Sketch to Figma because of the collaboration aspect of Figma. It's an Electron app. It's something that pretty much every designer can use it, no matter if you have it installed or you can use it through your browser. Google Chrome is recommended because it's more compatible with it. But the collaboration aspect is amazing. Like you can literally have 5, 6 designers at the same time on the same file, working and modifying, the cursor. It's like working on a Google Doc, but on a design file, which is amazing. And it's literally like, it's the industry standard. Like all the agencies and top designers are using Figma, and Figma is well known and recommended its use. So I guess, I don't know why there's this misconception that if you get a round of funding of millions of dollars, it's a good thing. No, it's not. It's a really bad thing, because you're selling away your company, and you're just making more debt. It's not that you're making more money. You're just making more debt. And $40 million, it's a lot of money. How are they planning to?
Yeah, I mean, the person giving you $40 million either wants that 40 million back plus interest, or they want stocks because they believe that it's going to be worth a lot of money at some point. My first job was at a startup, and one of our benefits was stock options, which you got all the stock, and then you had the option to buy it at a certain rate, and it was really cheap. It was like 5 cents a share, and they're like, oh, here's thousands of shares. You keep getting more and more, and you're like, oh man, like one day this is going to take off and I make a lot of money. Well, the company didn't do well, and so we kept getting more and more funding from our investors. And at some point, it's like, oh yeah, I've got 40,000 shares, and I was like, how many shares are there total, like that between the investors and everybody? And it was like 3 billion shares. I'm like, well, now my tens of thousands of shares is like worthless.
This is the 0.01%.
Yeah, like
nothing.
I can't even sell it for more than I can buy it for.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, that's the problem. It's no, I don't understand. I think it's all like this main concept that you have to scale and grow as fast as possible, because like. And of course, we're talking just these are all hypotheses or like feelings that we have, because we don't know the status of Figma. We don't know what's behind the team and how is the actual financial status of this company. But if your application is the industry standard, and you have a massive user base, worldwide user base, and you have a subscription model, something, so I guess you get paid. I guess you make money. What's the point in making more depth just to speed up the development, just to boost, and instead of like growing slowly and steadily and owning your product and not having depth, not have to think, oh, I have to grow 10 times more in the next 5 years because I have to pay back the investors. That's something that can destroy your company, seriously, can damage it, especially with that amount. So yeah, I'm not happy about this news. I consider Figma like an amazing tool. I didn't know it wasn't a profitable company. I wasn't aware that we're still doing funds of running, and that's a Series C, so it's the third round of funding that they're doing. It's scary as hell. Moving on.
Yeah. So some news from Bootstrap. Don't know how long it'll take because Bootstrap 4 took many, many years. But Bootstrap 5 is removing jQuery. I think this is exciting news because you can do a lot in vanilla JavaScript without needing jQuery. And if you want to use Bootstrap 5, jQuery is just another dependency that you have to load in. It's another JavaScript file that has to be sent to the client to get everything working. And with Flexbox and CSS Grid, there really should be no need for some of the stuff jQuery does. I think you really don't even need Bootstrap for a lot of that. The columns and things. You just use CSS Grid and you're good to go. There's your 12 columns.
I love it. You should write it in the pull request that they're working on. But let's step back a little bit. Why do we need Bootstrap? Great. No, I love it. It's massive. Actually, I was looking at the pull request. There was created on August 2017. So it's more than almost a year and a half ago, like more than a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, they move slow.
Well, it's an open source project, so what can you do?
That is true.
But they did a lot, like considering for the like from the report that I wrote, like all the alert buttons, carousel, the drop down, the modal and popover, the tooltips are all vanilla JavaScript now. What's missing, of course, is updating the documentation, remove the Internet Explorer compatibility, make sure that the old version there's no reference, so they're targeting Bootstrap version 5. Version 4 will still be with jQuery, and it's interesting. It's there are a lot of interesting comments though, because this update has been going on for almost 2 years now, and a lot of users, they were saying Bootstrap is good because it's really approachable and it's really easy, and the fact that jQuery comes with it, it's really like the learning curve, it's pretty much flat for anyone. And jQuery, even if it's not the latest coolest thing ever out there, it's really stable, it's solid, it's easy to learn, it's pretty much in every CDN available out there, so it's really fast to load. It doesn't slow down your website if you use a CDN, because yes, jQuery is heavier than another framework or another library, but you're most likely, because it's been around for 20 years now, you most likely won't like embed it directly in your website like WordPress does.
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely, 20 years ago, it revolutionized web development. It was especially like they came out with like jQuery animations and everything back before CSS animations were really a thing. And it was amazing back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, a lot of users are questioning, why did we spend almost 2 years on this instead of having like Flexbox or CSS Grid or something, like improving Bootstrap to make it lighter and more approachable for the user, instead of like stripping away the jQuery part, which took like a lot of development resources from the actual development of Bootstrap. But it's interesting. Like I'm interested to see how many bugs will come out from version 5, because that's one of the things of jQuery. Like jQuery has been like this for at least 5 to 6 years. They didn't change the API. So you know that something that you code with jQuery still works today. You don't need to test it. You don't need to refactor it because it's so solid. It's fine. Now they rebuilt all their JavaScript with vanilla. So how many bugs and missing things are gonna happen in the new version of of Bootstrap?
Yeah, that is a very good point.
That's gonna be it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, do you think jQuery will like disappear sooner or later?
I don't, I thought it had, but I see stuff all the time where people are like, hey, I need some help on a project. It's it's HTML and jQuery and PHP, and I'm like, man, like it's still around. Like a lot of people still use it as opposed to Vue or React or something. So yeah, I don't know. I think one day it will, but I think it'll be around for a long time.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, considering the web is running on like websites that are 20 years old still, so we're still that. And you, like, I read something on your Twitter that you were looking to refactor or to upgrade from Laravel from Angular version 1.3 to 1.7 and something.
Yes, yeah. So we're using an older version of Angular, and I kind of like look through documentation, and it's a lot of text upgrade. So I was just kind of reaching out to see like, is there any like really major breaking changes before I kind of get into this? Because Angular 1.x is quite old and it's coming to end of life. So we need to kind of get it up to the last like stable version that they released, just to keep our security and everything up to speed.
Yeah.
And it just looks like it's going to be such a pain.
But I guess like it's a similar situation with websites that is still, or application that still use jQuery, because you probably for how big is your application at work, you don't want to refactor it completely and strip out Angular and use React or Vue. They're more modern, but it's not really worth it. Like, you need 2 years of development just to redo it completely, right? So
yeah, this application's 3 years old.
Yeah.
I would love to upgrade it, but 3 years of 4 developers working on something full time.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's over a decade of work time basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So
so yeah, I guess we're still gonna see a lot of applications and websites using jQuery for the same reason, right? Like refactoring is not. So I don't think like jQuery will die completely. It's a sort of like, it's considered by their developers like a stable project, something that doesn't need constant updates and constant upgrades to keep up with the technology. It's impressive that jQuery can run on Internet Explorer and it works super smoothly, and it works as well on the latest version of Chrome or Firefox. So it's impressive from the point of view. So I don't think it's gonna die, but probably it's not gonna be maintained because actually it doesn't need to be maintained as much. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And yeah, I'm really curious about Bootstrap, how also that's gonna be like a major backward compatibility like breaking change, right?
oh yeah.
So all the things, no one is caring anymore about their own things or their old stuff. Everyone's like, let's go to the new thing and whatever, it's okay. The last bit of news, the Laracon Online is starting on March 6th, and the tickets are just $25. I pretty much attended all the Laravel Online, all of the Laracon Online, because they're great. You can stay in your pajamas and couch, and all the speakers are amazing. And you probably don't, not probably, you're not going to have all the hot news and latest announcement that you can have if you actually attend the Laracon, but it's a really great online sort of like workshop presentation of all the extra stuff, and there are a lot of great speakers. And last year probably was like 4 hours, 5 hours or something like that, even more.
Yeah, this year it's like all day.
All day. Wow.
Yeah, one great thing is if you buy the ticket and let's say you're in Europe or someplace where, because this runs like, I think it starts like at 9 Eastern time till like 5. Everything is going to be recorded and available for you to watch afterwards. So if you are in a time zone where you can't watch it live, you can watch it, the next day if you purchase a ticket.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I'm really excited to see what Adam Wathan is going to present, the creator of Tailwind CSS, and also Wes Bos, which
Wes Bos is going to be presenting.
He always says, I'm always the guy who talks about JavaScript on a PHP conference. So, love it.
Yeah, and I think Taylor's going to be talking about some new features in the newest version of Laravel that's coming out.
Do you have any more insights or possible like predictions of this new Laravel Vapor or Vape or whatever it's gonna be?
I haven't thought about it in a while. Taylor's actually been kind of quiet on it, so I don't know. I think he'll probably ramp up closer to July once we get closer to Laracon US. I don't know. I'm still gonna say it every year.
CMS. So let me ask you this: last year he was ramping up Laravel Nova. That now we know it's an admin dashboard sort of management system that you can build it, and he was using constantly the emoji of a wave. Why? What's the connection with that?
No idea. I have no idea what goes through his head and why he tweets these things.
It's just to throw us off. Everyone was like, oh, Laravel Wave, Laravel Surf, Laravel something. No, Nova. And the graphic of Laravel Nova was like all like sort of like space related, scientific, like with a satellite and moon or something. So no connection whatsoever with the emoji that he uses. So Laravel with the Vapor, with the vape emoji that he's using, it's probably not going to be a thing. It's going to be called something completely different.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's going to give everybody those vaping things that all the kids are doing these days.
Oh, really? They're still doing it? They're not like this. There was a new study that they don't cause cancer, but they cause pneumonia or something.
Yeah, they're still pretty bad for you. And apparently in the US right now, we're having an issue where you're supposed to be 18 to buy them,
Hmm.
but a lot of kids are getting them and they're so small that they can take them to class or whatever. And um, so yeah,
Wow.
there's been a lot of like health issues there. So
Great. Love it.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just new ways to arm ourselves because, yeah, whatever. It's fine. Life is short. Let's make it shorter. Okay, let's move on the main topic that you picked the main topic this week, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, so I had seen this a little bit on social media, but recently I've seen a lot of people kind of standing up against it, and it's the whole like, well, you're not a real developer because of blah blah blah.
Mm.
Uh, I don't know. I think social media in a way, in our field, I feel like most of the time people are very constructive and oh that looks great, or here's a suggestion or whatever. But there's also the people out there that somebody might be like, oh, like, I'm looking for a front end job and I'm really great at CSS. People just be like, CSS isn't a real programming language. You're not a real developer. Like,
Ha.
it's like, have you done some of these hard things in CSS? Like,
Yeah.
have you tried vertical alignment? So
Yes.
and our field is very, very broad.
Hmm.
You can't just be like, well, you're not a real developer unless you're developing in Rust and Go, and
Hmm.
there's so many different things, from the front end to the back end, databases, design. I mean, there's just so much stuff you can't possibly know it all.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of people that are kind of coming out and they're just saying like, like, oh yeah, well, I only do PHP and I'm a real developer, and just kind of like
Yeah.
going after these people saying like, stop putting people down for what they know.
Yeah.
Everybody's learning. This is a field that changes constantly. Um, and if you're doing any kind of coding, you're a developer. No
Yeah,
matter
that's true.
what skill level. If you just started last week, you're a developer.
Yeah, absolutely. There are like even people that they do some crazy stuff with spreadsheets and like Excel files, and those could be considered developers with all the algorithms that are right. Those are
Yeah.
insane. But yeah, no, even if you write HTML, you're a developer. It's fine. It's just, first of all, it's just a name. It's a title. It doesn't represent anything. It doesn't represent yourself as a person or your skill level, something. And I noticed this trend also in between the same field. So you said if you don't work with PHP, you're not a developer. But even PHP developers, they attack each other by saying, oh, if you don't use object-oriented programming, it's just procedural, you're not a real developer.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not using the ternary operation, spread functions, or say, oh, you don't know these things, so you're not a real developer. You just write the magic functions like get and post, and that's it. Oh, that's not real development. That's just preposterous. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's pretty silly. And I like coincidentally connected to this, I noticed another trend on Twitter that a lot of people were getting like not getting jobs because they didn't have a computer science degree. Even if like there were these users like have been coding for 10 years to 15 years and the employer was only looking at my degree, so I didn't have a computer science degree and I wasn't considered a proper developer.
Wow.
Which is super stupid, especially today. Like probably something like 20 years ago it would have made sense because the only way of learning programming and computer science was going to university, was going to school and learning there. But now really you can have a coding bootcamp or some like even online you can learn it. You can close yourself and just like lock yourself in the house for 3 months and code every day. And that's it. You can learn whatever you want.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's true. And I mean, I do have a computer science degree, but where I work, my architect who's above me does not have a computer science degree. And I don't think our two developers do either. And these are bright guys. They're great developers.
yeah.
And to not consider somebody because they don't have a degree, if you've got experience, I mean, that speaks volumes. That speaks a lot more than just a piece of paper that you got 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was I don't know how it works in the US, but it was interesting the difference between Italy and Canada when I moved. Like in Italy, when you get hired, you go through the process, they really look at your degrees. If you want to do something that is not related at the field of study, it's pretty much impossible to get into. Instead, when I moved to Canada, I was like completely afraid and terrified, like, oh my God, I have to redo all my degrees or I have to translate my degrees or something because they're not recognized. But they didn't care at all. It was just, oh, you've been coding WordPress for 10 years? Okay, yes, that's the job offer. We need a WordPress developer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and also when I went through computer science, this was 2005 to 2009. It was all Java and
Oh my God.
Perl and stuff that I've really never used in my career.
Yes.
So it's any of the PHP I did back then was nothing like the PHP that we use today. They taught concepts like object-oriented concepts.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the actual like hard skills,
Mm-hmm.
you don't learn any of that stuff, or you did, but everything's changed.
Yeah.
I mean, what we use next year is going to be completely different than what we're writing in right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I think it's a good way, like if you don't have experience, to kind of get your foot in the door. But if people have experience, then it should be easily overlooked.
Yeah, I think the next generation of developers, like those there currently, they are like 20-ish, something like before 30, like 20 until like up until 25, 26, 27, where they're going to go in management roles or like higher roles in the next 10 years, 10, 15 years. I think the trend is going to change because I see a lot of these resistance from really old developers. The old way of thinking that because in the old age, if we want to call it like that, and in the old times, to become a developer, you needed really like 5 years of studying some crazy obscure things. Now it's not like that anymore. It's like the pace and the speed of learning and the speed of new technologies, how everything changes. It's not necessary to have that approach. So
yeah, I mean, I guess kind of going along with that, the last thing I'd have to say on that is like working remotely, telecommuting.
Oh.
A lot of companies still, they want your butt in a chair 9 to 5, and they want to see you working. If they can't see you working, they don't think you're doing anything. And I think a lot of companies are starting to change in kind of adopting the remote work, which, like living in a city like Atlanta where the traffic is horrendous. Like I can't imagine like having to drive an hour each way to work after working remote for the last few years. And so, yeah, kind of going along with that old mentality. And like you said, like these younger people becoming managers and, it's like, I can video chat with you and have a meeting right here. I don't have to go drive all the way to the office.
Yeah, exactly. This thing also, and I think the tech industry, like it's responsible for that, or like we're kind of like destroying the economy a little bit with this approach, right? Because we like all these, for example, there's tech giant, there's Amazon or there's Google or there's Facebook, that they have these like the headquarters in California, Los Angeles, New York, whatever. And so all the people that they have to work there, they move there. And because you work for this tech giant, you get a lot of money. Then you invest those money or use those money in those areas, so the prices go up for all the people, even though the people that don't work for these tech giants, that don't make the same amount of money. So it gets pretty much terrible. And it will always be like that until we're going to go fully remote. Because there's a friend of mine that he was working here for a tech company, and he was making a lot of money. But Vancouver is really expensive. So for the amount of money that he was making, he wasn't having like a sort of, I wouldn't say luxurious life, but it was okay. Sometimes it was struggling no, it's better. I'm not going to go out tonight because I don't want to spend too much money in like beer or something. I'm going to stay at home. Now he moved to Mexico, in a small town in Mexico, and he's going to work from there with the same amount of money that like here in Vancouver was an okay amount. There in that town in Mexico is like a stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
So the economy is changing. Imagine if you can work for like at a really high rate in a in a town or in a country where the price are low, you're gonna like things are gonna change faster. You're gonna change the economy. You will be able to invest the money that you're making in your local area. So it's not gonna be like it's right now that just New York, Los Angeles, and all these big cities are stupid expensive, and everywhere else is stupid cheap because no one lives there, because no one works there.
Yeah, I had thought about doing that myself. We went to my wife had a conference in Australia a few years ago, and we just loved Melbourne. And I was like, man, if we can move here, like the US dollar to Australian dollar was strong.
Yeah.
Like I could still work for my company remotely and get paid in US dollars, and I'd be worth a whole lot more in Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I went to San Francisco a few years ago, and I remember on my flight back, I was reading the magazine, and it was saying that it was so expensive to live there that people were living in Las Vegas and flying to work every day because it's cheaper
No
than
way.
staying in San Francisco.
Oh my God.
And you see these developers that are making $200,000 a year,
Yeah.
and they're sleeping in their car in the Google parking lot.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're making $200,000 a year, you should be able to afford at least an apartment. I mean,
Yeah, at least or two cars. If you want to sleep in a car, at least buy a car for sleeping and a car for driving.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the overpopulation and the fact that everyone has to be in the same place to work on these companies. But remote working will change the economy drastically, and it will improve it for sure, because yeah, it's insane. It's not like in the past that, oh, we're not going to be farmers anymore, so let's all move to the city and let's all work in the city in factories and things. Like it's not like that anymore. It doesn't work. Like we're too many. The traffic is insane. The renting is insane. You don't have enough apartment. There's not enough space. As soon as there's a little bit of snow or like that there's some sort of like small emergency, the stores are completely empty because everyone starts buying in a frenzy. Like everyone freaks out and they buy everything. So you you go to shop and at a store and buy some fruit. No, we're out of bananas. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we had the snowpocalypse a few weeks ago where we were expected to get snow, and Atlanta is a little freaked out because a few years ago they got snow and people were like trapped on the highways for like a day and a half.
Wow.
And so all the schools shut down the day before, the university shut down, people were raiding the grocery stores, and we didn't get any snow. It stayed above freezing the entire time. Like we didn't get any ice. It was crazy, but they were so freaked out by it that they shut everything down.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see how it's going to evolve the messaging kind of thing, because right now we're all in this like instant messaging approach for remote working. So everyone is constantly online on Slack. As soon as they send you a message, you have to answer immediately. But a lot of people are not happy about it, and it makes sense because it's super distracting, especially for creative work or programming work. You need to be focused 2-3 hours nonstop. Otherwise, it's just like multitasking is not a thing. It's just you're distracted on many different things. You're not productive. Yeah, we'll see. For example, like Mozilla, they don't use instant messaging. They use email or the IRC chat. And it's all really like sort of like slow pace, but productive slow pace, which is an approach I never had since I moved here in North America.
Yeah, I think especially like when you get into like a senior level developer position where you are interfacing more with business people and they want to be able to contact you and be like, oh, I've got this idea for a feature, or
my God,
I'm having this bug or whatever. And it's just like can you just send me an email and in 2 hours I will respond to everything. But it completely distracts you. And then when you finally get back to programming, it's like, what was I doing? Like,
no, it's totally agree. It's intense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to adapt. Like we're not really good at adapting, right? We're not. we kind of do, but as soon as there's a new shiny thing, first we destroy it, and then we say, okay, now we should think about how to use it properly. So yeah, remote working is good, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see. Okay, so we are at the end of the show. I have one simple recommendation of the end of the show, to listen to another podcast because, yay, competitions, it's fine. The podcast is called Grumpy Old Geeks, and it's done by two former developers. They've been working on like really crazy big sites in the past, and now they just do podcasts and do other things. But it's great because they're really grumpy. They're grumpier than us, and they talk about all these crazy things that are happening in the technology, and they don't only talk about the technology but also the business side, and they analyze the how these startups are doing, and they did some great reports on Facebook from a security and cybersecurity point of view. It's just like, it's really insightful. They're really funny to listen to, and the interesting thing is that they don't always agree on things. Well, most likely, most of the times they disagree on everything, but they're really polite with each other. They agree to disagree, and they move on, which is, it's kind of hard to find, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially nowadays where it's, I saw somebody describe it. How did they put it? It was like, put 300 million people into a stadium and give them each a megaphone, and now you have real life Twitter.
That's true. Yeah.
It's, everybody has an opinion and they take it personal and they have to argue and get mad, and it's just like, we all have different opinions. If we all speak them nicely,
Yeah.
we might be able to come up with a nice middle ground and a good solution to solve a lot of problems. But a lot of things don't go that way.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Nah.
Okay, we're at the end of the show. Where people can find you, Chris?
You can find me on YouTube, on Twitter at Chris J. Perko. You can message me about whatever. You can yell at me. My website's chrisperko.net, and so that's about it.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter as well, Alicad, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Please leave us a review of the Nerd Continuity podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever other podcast application you're listening to. Also on YouTube, just like leave us a comment there and we'll answer on the next video. And as usual, until the next one, happy coding.
Yes, and good luck to all you real developers out there.
Yes, you have to be a real developer.